Well, again, it's good to connect with you, Downsview Baptist. It's Pastor Pete speaking to you, and we're just coming to the last few days of the month of April. And before we know it, we're going to be into May. And it is just as my buddy Daryl Dash at Liberty Grace Church says, that it's a really hopeful time of the year. You know, we're just looking forward to that wonderful weather that continues to get closer and closer. It's a bit chilly this week, and we had that crazy snowstorm last week. But Saturday morning, Pam and I were out on the balcony here, and we were in just our shorts and t-shirts and, drinking coffee and listening to those birds that, I don't know about you, they just seem to sing louder in the springtime. There's something about the sunrise, just the smell. We live across from a golf course, as you know, and you can smell the freshly cut grass to some degree. Closed right now, but they are, I don't know, there's just something about, you can see the buds, they're almost growing in front of you on these trees, and a number of the bushes have these flowering plants have these flowering bushes on them already, and they're out in full glory, and it's just a wonderful time of the year. One of the things I want to encourage you about today is something that's hit me as a bit of a conviction, leading me, and I hope us together, towards a more hopeful outlook for the future. And that's particularly with respect to our church attendance. Barice Patience is a new friend of mine from the New Life Christian Assembly here in Toronto, not that far from us at Downsview. Actually, if you take Wilson Avenue and you just go straight west, it's kind of between Islington, or between Weston, I guess, and Islington, that's what it is. Between Weston and Islington, that stretch of Wilson Avenue that, you just keep going out past the west, past the church. And their church is kind of tucked away off to the side. And he posted something on Facebook the other day. It's an article from Tim Challies, who, you know how much I respect our brother Tim Challies. He's an author and a blogger, and he's actually one of the elders at Grace Fellowship Church, which is also not that far from us. But Barice posted this article that's actually a couple or 3 years old already, but it has to do with just a mild, I want to say fear, really mild concern that I have, and that a number of us brother pastors have raised with each other, in terms of the comfort level with which so many of our people have been staying away from church over the past year. Now, we are well over a year since our church initially shut down. On the 8th of March 2020 was the last time we had a service. We were off for a while. We were back in the summer. We were in there for a good bit of the fall before we shut down again, and hoping for a little stretch there. And we thought, Easter Sunday and the Sunday after, and here we are back down again. It looks like, with these number of vaccines, I was shocked to see over 30% of our city and almost 30% of the country have been vaccinated. So good on you out there, folks. Good for you. You got an opportunity to get that vaccine, get it in you. That's the thing, in God's providence, going to keep moving us out of this. We're not going to destroy the COVID virus, but we certainly can combat it with that vaccine. And so I'm finding myself going, you know what? There really is an end in sight. But it's been so easy for so many folks to prioritize and on the edge of idolize physical health over and against and at the expense of spiritual health. And I know the pushback, because I've pushed back when I've heard people say that kind of thing. But this article from Tim Challies made me just find myself personally even a little more convicted to want to encourage you to move towards a hopeful lifestyle, which is a lifestyle that really is around the people of God as we have opportunity to be there. There's somehow we've taken in or developed, listened to our non-Christian friends, family, whatever it is, that says it really doesn't make a difference to us if we're not together in corporate worship. That's not the same as saying that it isn't different, because of course it is different, and that we can only do what we can do, like you're watching these videos, which we didn't do before the pandemic. And there's an opportunity for us to reach people beyond our walls, to be sure. And so there's lots of advantages. I'm saying when we get to the point to think it doesn't make a difference to us at all, and the reason that it doesn't may very well be because the thing that matters so incredibly overwhelmingly, that trumps everything else, is just staying alive. And Tim Challies gives us some thoughts, and I usually read these kind of Friday things on Friday feature, but I'm going to give it to you today on a Tuesday, just as God in his providence has dropped it into my lap. So without any more introduction, let me read Tim Challies' article, where he argues for our good. And I'll post this link to this article on the bottom of this video, and it's already on my Facebook page now, but it's called "The Worst Consequence of Skipping Church." So we're a culture of convenience, Challies says, of personalization, of individualism. We have a million ways of customizing our lives to perfectly suit every preference. When things are difficult, we think little of pulling away from responsibilities, of reorienting our lives away from whatever causes inconvenience. This can even extend to something good and central as our commitment to our local church. All of us who are involved in local churches have seen people waver and wander in their commitment. Most of us have had to extend a call to someone to urge them back into participation, back to worship services. When we do this, we often turn to our go-to text, Hebrews 10:24-25, to warn of the danger of, quote, neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some. We insist that those who neglect to participate in the local church will encounter spiritual temptation, spiritual decline, and even spiritual death. Now, while all of this is true, it's not the emphasis of that passage. In fact, when we use the passage this way, we're not only displaying the divine urgency, we are not only failing to display the divine urgency behind the text, but we're displaying our own deep-rooted individualism. Here's what Hebrews 10:24 and 25 says. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and to good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. This passage does indeed warn of the serious consequences of skipping church, but its focus is not what we might expect through our Western, individualized eyes. This passage does not warn us that when we skip church, we put ourselves at risk. Rather, it warns us that when we skip church, we put other people at risk. The first sin of skipping church is the sin of failing to love others. Gathering with God's people is not first about being blessed, but it's about being a blessing. It's not first about getting, but about giving. And as we prepare to worship on Sunday morning, our first consideration should be, quote, how to stir up one another to love and good works. We should approach Sunday deliberately, eager to do good to others, to be a blessing to them. In those times, we feel our zeal waning. When we feel the temptation to skip out on a Sunday morning and just to withdraw altogether, we should consider our God-given responsibility to encourage, quote, one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. The text is not about us, but about them. The text is not for Christian individuals, but for Christian communities. And, of course, our commitment to the local church is far more than a commitment to Sunday morning services. It is a commitment to other people through all of life. It's a commitment to worship with them once or twice a week, then to fellowship with them, to serve them, to pray for them all throughout the week. It is to bind ourselves together in a covenant in which we promise to do them good, to make them the special object of our attention and encouragement. It is to promise that we will identify and deploy spiritual gifts for their benefit so that we can serve them, strengthen, and bless them. Every Christian has a place within the local church. Every Christian is needed within the local church. Every Christian has responsibilities within the local church, and every Christian is to commit to the members of a local church, to love them, to encourage them, to stir them up with zeal until the day of Christ's return. It's a wonderful exegetical and God-centered understanding of that text, isn't it? When we skip church, when we neglect to come, not right now, we're not skipping it, we're agreeing with people who tell us that we should in terms of safety for the public in general as well as one another. But when we can come and when we don't, there's 100 million good reasons, but we're finding that there's something that is rooted in my own self-absorption, self-focus, selfishness that causes me to say, I can let it go for this week. And for many people who are not watching this video, they've let it go for about 60 weeks at Downsview and at hundreds of churches across the GTA. And as leaders of the church, that's painful for us to consider. It's heavy on a pastor's heart like mine. And to equip each of us to help one another to understand that it really does make a difference to us because we are making a difference to others. And where there's some kind of duty to do it, it doesn't end up causing us to come through, does it? Because unless there's a delight in the decree of God, and unless there's a delight to do our brothers and sisters good, we'll find lots of really well done online videos. And before we know it, life in the local body will be purely a spectator activity. And so, friends, I take a risk in relaying this to you because it's easy to push back. I know, I've done it. I've defended our church. I've defended other people. I've gone at other people that I think they're wrong when they mention things like this. And there's always extremes that we need to be careful of, but there's something about enjoying the Lord as the Lord has designed us with his people that really does make a difference when we don't avail ourselves of the opportunity. Because the difference we can make in someone else's life is the difference that we're not making, because we're simply not taking the opportunity to stir them up towards love and good deeds, and to be helpful to them to find their joy in the Lord, which is indeed our strength. I think you'd agree, when you get past, like I have, the pushback that comes from us, to let the Holy Spirit let it settle in us. And I think we'll agree that it's worth considering and worth acting on to the glory of our King. All right, friends. See you.